Mostly it is loss which teaches us about the worth of things. Arthur Schopenhauer. A fundamental shift is going to happen in the financial economy. Please keep your friends and family aware. Like, subscribe, share these videos.
So when I hear phrases like distributed ledger technology, which is not a phrase that has ever been uttered in Silicon Valley, what I think that is code for is I'm pro-blockchain, but I'm anti-crypto. So let me just level set for people who are not deeply educated in this. There's no such thing as blockchain without crypto. Crypto is the native asset that induces people to solve the puzzles that result in validating transactions. It's the only reason people plug their computer into the network in order to do the transaction validation that occurs. So don't be fooled by people who say I'm pro-blockchain and anti-crypto. You wouldn't have stablecoin networks without the Ethereum token. That's what led to the development of the Ethereum network on which all of these stablecoins are built. And so we do really need the clarity Hester's talking about, because without it, there won't be blockchain. And so we can't think of the blockchain as the infrastructure. It's the ecosystem of tokens and networks that is the national infrastructure on them.
We watched financial news headlines tout distributed ledger technology. Bank after bank, consortia after consortia announced to the world that they're utilizing distributed ledger technology, that they're utilizing blockchain technology for these networks. Brian Brooks is a professional that has a long-standing career at Coinbase and now is the comptroller of the OCC. He just explained to you that you can't have one without the other. The next time some conservative investor tells you that this project doesn't use crypto, remember what Brian said. He's the professional.
We must understand that decentralization is the point, right? If we had embraced listservs and intranets in the early 90s, we wouldn't own the future the way that we do now on the internet.
The internet is made up of hubs. When we access the internet, the traffic centralizes to websites like Twitter, Facebook, Amazon, Google, etc. The same will be true for the internet of value. We will have networks that make the tokens of those networks valuable, because the network offers us something of value. This is going to happen on the retail level, where these tokens will offer incentives to hold them. Imagine Amazon offered a token that as you held the token, you received interest or another coin that counted as rewards. The same is true for the back end. Banks, Fortune 500 companies will access networks that offer wholesale utility. XRP is a settlement token on RippleNet. It's a way to transfer value across borders for cheap.
Permissionless blockchains ultimately are the future in this world. Now, there are individual companies and networks that will have their closed loops, much as companies in the late 80s and early 90s had their internal intranets and listservs, and those have their place.
In 2008, the banks failed and the Fed bailed them out. In 2020, the banks are failing and the Fed is bailing them out. The difference today is the Fed can't stop bailing them out. Easy money directly to these banks indefinitely or until the economy stabilizes. That's not going to happen. This is why they're so desperate for a COVID cure. This easy bailout money is causing inflation. We can't have hyperinflation.
So I am looking forward to the discussion of the myriad issues that CBDCs raise, including really serious privacy concerns. But I believe that a lot of the really interesting innovation in crypto is happening outside of the central bank digital currency space. Fiat currency could be replaced by what I like to call we-ot currency. We the people decide what transaction medium we want to use.
The Fed will pull the rug at one point because inflation is too high. They do this by raising interest rates and the whole global economy will come to a halt, and then the banks will fail. After the banks fail, nobody will be able to access their money. Imagine if the whole world couldn't access their wealth. To stop the people from revolting, the Fed will send Fed coins to everyone's wallets. This is resetting the system from debt that you had at commercial banks to credits that we now have with the Fed. The legacy system will be frozen and banks will only be able to transact using crypto assets, the internet of value.
Our job is not to protect bank business models. Our job is to ensure that if bank business models change, we manage the financial and macroeconomic consequences of that. It's not the job of central banks to keep, and I tried to set out in my initial remarks that those business models have changed hugely. I mean, they just weren't in the buying a cup of coffee with a sight deposit transaction business even 10 or 15 years ago, and they will change again. 100 years ago, banks in the UK just didn't lend on real estate. It was thought anathema. So we shouldn't think of this as kind of some fixed thing. Banks will have to adjust. It's our job to make sure that the adjustments are actually manageable within that. And lastly, was my other point. If a new private money comes along using different rails, a stablecoin, a Libra, you'll have exactly those issues. Those issues aren't for a CBDC. So you may want to ask the question, can I ban it? And that goes to my point. I don't think you can hold back the way people will change the use of money when technology changes to suit them. And if I can't ban it, is there a better alternative? Or can I manage those issues better from the central bank end?
80% of the citizens were against the bailouts of 2008. The next banking crisis, there needs to be a change. As he just stated, it's not the central bank's business to support bad business models. Crypto can fundamentally change this system forever. The next crisis is the opportunity that they will use to reset to the internet of value. They can't ban it. They can only manage the issues.
The other thing that China has done is they have captured more than 51% of the mining capacity on the Bitcoin blockchain, which means that the very first internet of money, which was the Bitcoin blockchain about 10 years ago, is now essentially owned by China. So as a country, we now face a geostrategic competitiveness issue, which is, do we in the United States want to own Internet 2.0 in the same way that we own Internet 1.0?
XRP has been around since 2012. It's a coin that has been on the crypto scene from the very beginning. Wealth is stored on this public crypto. There is an incentive for everyone in the world to crack the ledger. It has been around for 8 years without a problem.
Well, certainly we do know of central banks looking at the XRP ledger as open source technology to issue stablecoins using the XRP ledger. And that may happen, and frankly, it's open source technology. We don't even necessarily have to be involved with that. Now, as experts in using the XRP ledger, some of them talk to us, and we try to be helpful, and we think that can be good for the overall dynamics in the XRP community.
Central banks create money for nations. Understand that Brad just said there are central banks, plural, banks, meaning more than one creator of fiat for nations. Imagine if two nations didn't have to settle traditionally with Nostro and Vostro and could settle instantly using XRP. As Bob Way stated, that scenario is game over for every other central bank, for every other nation. Recently, there was a data breach and email addresses and phone numbers were stolen from Ledger. The cyber criminals emailed and texted all of these numbers and asked for keys. This is called phishing. Unfortunately, some of these people provided this information. Over 1 million XRP was stolen. If you're new and naive to crypto, self-custodying has flaws. iTrustCapital offers institutional-grade custodying solutions called Curve, as well as a leading insurance policy on all of your assets. There is a link in the description of my video, as well as a link to an in-depth explanation of Curve. Be sure to check it out. iTrustCapital.
Areas, and I can tell you just from having discussed with my international colleagues, they are looking to us for the question of how to apply things like know your customer requirements and anti-money laundering requirements in this space. And so we will have a leadership role in formulating those rules for technologies developed here or technologies developed elsewhere, at least among the responsible, like-minded countries. And Brian mentioned Singapore. One of the projects we were working on at the Financial Stability Board was a regulatory review of stablecoins. And that was co-led by me and my counterpart in Singapore. So they're clearly thinking, they're forward-leaning on this, but they're also thinking carefully about the important public policy imperatives that are relevant to the evolution of these technologies.
Brent McIntosh serves under the Secretary of the Treasury for International Affairs, where he provides leadership in strengthening the environment for the U.S. economic growth, advancing American interests in the international financial system, protecting financial stability, and managing key global challenges. Did you notice how the room became stiff when Brent was speaking? It's clear that the international front supersedes the domestic front Hester and Brian are pushing for.
What crypto is about, and I'll talk about central bank digital currency as a species of this in a moment, but what crypto is about is the idea that transmitting value is not fundamentally different from transmitting information. We now have a technology that can simultaneously maintain ledgers algorithmically, so you no longer need a bank clerk wearing eye shades to maintain ledgers in a book. But it can also do things peer-to-peer. So it can maintain a ledger, but also transact value directly without the need for any intermediation. This is just something that wasn't possible 20 years ago, but now it is. And blockchain is essentially the internet for the communication of value, much the same way that the first internet was an internet for the transmission of information.
Life evolves. The markets, economies, people, everything evolves. The economy is collectively human beings buying and selling goods. It's a measurement of the productivity of life. Moving value the way information moves on the internet is the next step to evolution. We are getting an update.
So another way we support the financial system is through our work on core financial market infrastructure. And that may seem like a bunch of geeky fintech stuff, but state-of-the-art payment systems and financial services are key to the competitiveness of Canadian businesses and to financial stability. And that's why the bank's been working with Payments Canada to modernize the payment system. And we've also stepped up our work on central bank digital currency, given that COVID-19 has accelerated the move to digital payments. Now, we're in the early stages of technical development with academics and some people in the private sector, as well as other central banks.
The markets, transactions from people to people, business to business, bank to bank, government to government will be able to remove the middlemen, efficient transactions, loans, etc. Cheaper to move money, automated money. New opportunities will rise from this efficiency. The fluidity of money will increase, buying and selling goods and services. When the economy is more efficient, everyone benefits.
So we're here today talking a little bit about central bank digital currency. And I want to slightly reframe the discussion to sort of say there are two ways forward for an internet-based transmission of value. One way is the government can build it. Now, this has happened in various places, particularly among our geopolitical competitors. China has actually done two major things to build an internet of value at the government level. One is, just a few weeks ago, China announced the issuance of something called the e-renminbi, which is an internet version of the Chinese yuan. Their theory is that although the dollar may be the global reserve currency, an aggressive muscle-flexing China can start chipping away at the dollar by building an easier-to-use currency. It may not be as stable in value. It may or may not be a true reflection of the strength of the Chinese economy for various reasons, but it's super easy to use because it can transact directly across an internet transmission portal, whereas dollars have to go through bank clearing organizations.
When the USA reacts to China, they're turning to the private sector. It just so happens that there is a company in San Francisco that has been around since the beginning. XRP was created in 2012 and later came Ripple the company.
When did Ripple, the company, file its incorporation papers? And the Secretary of State in the state of California can give you an answer to that. And it is way past the date at which the first XRP ledger activity happened. So the first XRP ledger, which included 100 billion units of XRP, was created in June of 2012. The company, which at the time was called NewCoin and later called OpenCoin, was co-founded in September. And I think actually the incorporation papers, post-dated even that September date.
There is 50 billion XRP locked into escrow. Each month, 1 billion XRP is released to Ripple for Ripple to advance the XRP ecosystem. When push comes to shove, Ripple is a company that can help the United States win the cold crypto race with China.
I hope that the Commission will adopt a more open approach to innovation. I fear otherwise will drive some of the brightest young minds this country has to overseas countries that are more accepting of innovation, and that would not be a good thing for any of us.
The government is a slow-moving machine, but when it starts moving, it accomplishes great tasks and quickly. With the current events in the last year, it is safe to say that the United States just started moving, and as it moves, it will pick up momentum.
We have not put a timeline out there. I don't know. I guess because you're asking, it's a fair question. I'll put 6 months. Within the next 6 months, I feel like we either need to have clarity or we need to move somewhere where there is clarity.
It is difficult to find happiness within oneself, but it is impossible to find it anywhere else. Arthur Schopenhauer. Thank you for liking and subscribing. If you enjoy my work, please consider joining my Patreon. Remember to hit the bell for notifications.